Behold, the 2024 Michter's 10-year single barrel is here, presumably overaged as usual, surpassing that 10-year age statement that adorns the iconic front label. Now, everyone's first question is, will it be as good as last year's? Chances are it could be, or it won't be. That's really the beauty of single barrels. Let's taste it and see if my bottle is worth the $185 price tag it commands. Plus, we'll check into some alternatives as usual. Stay right here. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help keep growing that channel for 2024 as we try to hit that 100,000 subscriber milestone. Appreciate the support, everybody. So when it comes to Michter's, things have always been a bit cloak and dagger. These special releases Michter's puts out each and every year, we know they're still sourced. They've always been uber tight-lipped about what the sources are. Last year, when I had the chance and privilege to talk with Master Distiller at Michter's, Dan McKee, he confirmed that the bourbon was older than the 10-year age statement would indicate. However, wouldn't go as far to say how old. I would venture a guess that this bottle probably is still the same. So with that said, the 2024 Michter's 10-year, as always, is bottled at 47.2% ABV or 94.4 proof. Again, this is a single barrel release, with this particular barrel I'm sipping being number 24B0674. The bottle also carries an SRP this year of $185. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's expensive. So we'll compare it to my specific bottle last year, one of the A barrels that got top 3 last year. It was just an incredible single barrel, so we'll see how this one stacks up. Here we go. First thing on the nose I get is old sweet oak. It's barrel char, it's a little bit of smoke, but if there's another distinctive note coming out of this, it is dark chocolate. There's a very distinctive, like fresh, unwrapped, dark chocolate bar type of note going on here. I also get this really over toasted marshmallow note. You take the marshmallow, you're holding it over the fire, it catches fire, but instead of blowing out when you're supposed to, you just let it go a little bit too long, gets a little bit too charred. I feel like that's really where the main sweetness is. Tons of vanilla, toffee. There is some rye spice here. I do get a nice little punch of kind of baking spices. Actually getting a hint of banana here, but more of like a Bananas Foster type vibe. I mean, it smells fantastic. It seems to get sweeter as you just let it sit in the glass, so let's give it a try. Here we go. I know a lot of people have said over the years that they think that Michter's, the ultra aged stuff, is sourced from Brown-Forman. And I gotta say, you know, I never really was super sure about it, because a lot of the single barrels do taste vastly different, but this is probably the most Brown-Forman-y Michter's I've had. I mean, the huge oak notes really shine. A lot of sweetness here, just like on the nose. I mean, there's so much depth. I really do think that in the last 2 years, I don't think anyone has brought out so much deep, rich flavor in a bottle that's less than 95 proof. That, I mean, it's incredible, the depth of flavor, and I really do think that gets into their super low entry proof. I think 103 that they use really helps break up those sugars in the barrel, gets a lot of sweetness kind of integrated from the beginning of maturation. That toasted marshmallow sweetness I'm getting is insane. It is so in my face right now. It is really prevalent to me. I mean, it tastes like straight up marshmallow. I think there's a bit of a coffee bean type thing happening there too. And on the back end, you get a lot of nice rye spice here. There's a nice little kick of spice there. You know, not overly done. Again, it's not gonna be really in your face at that low proof point, but I do think it's there. I mean, chocolate caramel, a little bit of more of that Bananas Foster vibe. It almost gets into like a molasses rum type of thing on the very mid palate here. But yeah, like that banana note just gets me into kind of a, you know, Brown-Forman type of profile. But it's just, you know, just like last year, this was so rich. But the one thing I'm not getting that I feel like I got last year was like that old, like dusty funk, like that old dusty oak note that I think made people love some of the single barrels from last year so much. All right, let's do a quick comparison. All right, so here's last year's A bottle. So this is a 23 A0276. This was the bottle I used in my blind tasting last year that got, you know, pretty high top billing here at the end of the year. It's always hard to grade these guys because it's really just gonna be, you know, what single barrel you get, the luck of the draw. Some of them are probably gonna be a lot better than others, and some of them are gonna maybe fall off a little bit, but I don't know, I feel like Michter's is extremely careful about their maturation process, so whatever barrel you get, chances are it's gonna be pretty good, so. All right, so first thing on the nose that I'm picking up here, and again, you know, this bottle's had a lot of ample airtime, but this is even coming off oakier, the 23. The 24 still, man, that marshmallow note is insane. And again, they do a custom type of char and toast level on those barrels from Michter's. It's, you know, I think it's kind of a proprietary type of process they use, and I think that plays a lot in part to why they get so much flavor at a lower proof point. Yeah, but my A barrel isn't nearly as sweet as the 24 here, so let's try the 23. Yeah, what the 23 has is like this old school, if you guys have ever had ultra aged bourbons from, I don't know, early 2000s, even 90s, you know, Elijah Craig barrel proof, like the old pirate bottle, like that style of oak is what's in this this Michter's for 23, at least my bottle that I have. You kind of transition to this year, at least this single barrel, this B barrel. I think the oak is not as intense. This one comes off way sweeter. Like I said, a lot more marshmallow, a little bit of that bananas foster there, molasses, coffee bean. And I think actually the 24 here has a little bit more rye spice, whereas the 23, at least my barrel, has got a little bit more of a velvety type of finish on it. It's not so rye spice forward as it is oaky and a little bit of a sweetness kick that kind of hits the back end. So real quick, I do want to compare this to the Heaven Hill 18 as well. All right, so we have the Heaven Hill 18 Heritage Collection. This was a pretty sought after bottle. Again, we don't know the exact age of these Michter's single barrels. All we know is that they are higher than 10 years old. But this Heaven Hill 18, we know damn well it's an 18 year, so let's see which one I like better here. The Michter's is definitely sweeter. The Heaven Hill 18, this is 120 proof. This is a huge lift in proof compared to the Michter's 10 year. And I feel like it drinks just as easy as the Michter's 10 year for 24. Now, when you compare, the Michter's 10 year actually drinks a tad bit easier, not a lot easier, but I do think that the Michter's 10 year actually has more sweetness to it. And I think somehow, some way, the rye spice actually holds up to the Heaven Hill 18. Yeah, and this Heaven Hill is getting really cherry forward, a lot of cherry cordial here, whereas I think the Michter's 10 year just kind of lives in that toasted marshmallow. So, all right, let's do a final breakdown, and I'll give you what I think is probably my favorite alternative to Michter's 10 year. All right, guys, final breakdown on the Michter's 10 year 2024 single barrel bourbon. Price for this one, as I mentioned, $185. Now, normally when these first drop, I've seen these as high as about $400, $425. It really depends on the popularity of the single barrel, so we'll see what happens with this one. Availability, as you guys know, it's gonna be super limited. Value for this one, I think for this particular bottle, I'm gonna say that this is below average. I'm not gonna say it's a low value because I think the bourbon in here is actually really, really delicious. It kind of goes in the direction of last year, but it just is kind of missing that extra layer of dusty like funk that I love. But overall, this is a really good bottle. But again, 185 bucks, I think is a lot to ask for when you don't really know the age of the whiskeys in here. It's one thing that I wish Michter's would do. I know the 10-year age statement on here is kind of a big deal, but if you have stuff in here that's 13 or 14 or 15 years old, if it's a 13 or 14-year-old single barrel, and I know, you know, there could be variable different ages from the single barrels that they're choosing, I feel like there should be a way to like kind of hand write that in so you can let people know exactly the age that you're getting. And that could really go a long way to whether someone decides to pay $185 for this. The most I pay for these, you know, unless it's a very special, you know, single barrel like last year, if there isn't a barrel that I have tried yet that I haven't fallen in love with yet, given the variability, I wouldn't pay more than retail for this. So alternatives for these, and you know, I have a couple, but I think the best alternative for this bottle is honestly Knob Creek 12 year, because Knob Creek 12 year is 60 something dollars. It's 12 years old. It's a little bit of a tick higher in proof at 100. And I know that it's probably not as sweet as this Michter's 10 year, but at least you're getting a higher age statement, probably somewhere in the ballpark that this is, for less than $100. Some folks have mentioned Baker's 13, some folks have mentioned Russell's 13, and some folks have mentioned Old Forester 10 year, the new 1924. Those within themselves are really hard to find, so I really feel like Knob Creek 12 year could be the best findable alternative for the Michter's 10. And finally, is this a skip, a try before you buy, a buy, or a buy and back it up? I'm not gonna go as far like I did last year and say this is a buy and back it up, but I do love this bourbon. Probably one of the better bourbons I've had in 2024. So I'll say this is a buy if you have the budget for it. If you're watching what you want to spend and you're not really keen on spending over $100 for a bottle of bourbon anymore, or if you just have a couple of splurge bottles that you spend on each and every year, then I would probably shift this to a try before you buy. But for me, I think this is one of the better bourbons that I've gotten to try this year, even at the lower proof. It's good, it's delicious, it's balanced, it's very sweet, it's got a lot of oak. Again, Michter's just has a way of maturing these bourbons where it's a low proof, but it has just, it's just packed with flavor, and it's really impressive. It, you know, does it suck that it's 185, 200 in most places? Yeah, and it's even gonna be beyond that. But like I said, don't pay over retail to get one, and if you're on a budget, try before you buy. And on top of that, I think I like this more than the Heaven Hill 18 year, and that one is $300 retail. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this review for the new Michter's 10 year single barrel bourbon. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. And if you haven't yet, find me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments if this is now kind of out of your price range, or are you even thinking about buying a bottle like this at $185, or if this is still in your mind something you want to hunt. Always love hearing from you guys. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers, and I'll see you next time right here on the Mash and Drum. Cheers, folks.